Hello, my fellow chatterers and book lovers, and anyone else who's popped in because you're curious about what this is or you've got a bit lost. Welcome, everyone. I am Chatty, and this is my channel, Chatty the Mad Chatter, and I am going to be chatting away about part 3 of my segmented study. So this is for the Readathon that has been created by G from Book Roast. It's called the Magical Readathon, and it is all about this fictional university that she's created called Orilium. It involves you creating your own character and taking courses in magical based things, and they all equal prompts. If you would like to know more about her readathon and wanting to get involved, it's happening again in August, then I have linked everything in the description box below for you to check out. So do go and do that if you haven't done, and it sounds fun because it really is fun. It's a whole load of fun, and I really enjoy doing this readathon. So my character, PioLurs Surloip, PioLurs Surloip, I can't even remember my own character now, great start, is studying the Star Whisperer calling. So if you would like to know more about my character, I will link a video here where I have my TBR about what I'm studying and what I intend to read for it, and it gives you a little bit more background information about my character if that is fun for you. So he is an elf and he's a little bit of a book nerd. So although he has sort of chosen the calling Star Whisperer, he wants to keep his options open. Also, we're interested in Scribe and a few other things, but he's a bit of a swot. He likes to do everything thoroughly and precisely, and so he wants to study everything. So I will also be having my April wrap-up where I'll go through everything that PioLurs managed to study in April, but I'm also going to be continuing to read each subject kind of after April is over. But for the segmented study, I am just focusing on all of the books that I'm reading for the specific Star Whisperer calling. So on this channel, I cannot edit because I have a decrepit laptop. I can manage editing on my phone for shorts, but I cannot do it for longer videos, such as this one. So it is one shot, there is no editing. Here's my little teacup gimmick. It's one shot of tea. So cheers everyone, clink, clink, clink. The camera keeps rolling. We embrace the chaos. We embrace the waffle, although I will try and keep it on point. We will see what happens. And I've been filming for over 2 minutes, so this is the first take, and we're just going to go with it because I don't want to redo it because time is precious. Time is precious, everyone. My voice is going, so I'm going to have some tea. Lovely. So if you wanted to see what I've been reading before, so this is kind of like a vlog that's been broken up because I can only do it in one long take. So there's no b-roll, there's no what I've been reading kind of like over the months because I cannot edit it together, so you're getting it in pieces. So that's what this is. If you want to see the first one, I will link it here. So you can check that out if you find this sort of thing interesting. It's there if you want it. So the next class that PioLurs has been exploring is the Art of Illusion, and the focus is disguise. Can't talk. The focus is disguise self, and for this we had to match a cover to your outfit. Ta-da! Here is my outfit, and here is my matching cover. So as you can see, I am wearing blue, pink and white, with white in the middle, sort of, there we go, white's in the middle on my collar, then pink and then blue either side, and it matches the wonderful trans flag which is splattered across Gender Euphoria. Gender Euphoria is a non-fiction collection of essays and sort of memoirs edited by Laura Kate Dale, who is a trans woman. And this is all about trans joy. And with this book, I definitely feel that you can either read it cover to cover, but you can also dip in and out of it as well. And I would definitely recommend, like, read it how you like. It's totally up to you. You could go through and be like, you know what, I fancy reading that one, and then read that, or you could just read it through. I definitely enjoyed reading it cover to cover because there were some things where I felt like the way every story was placed, it kind of continued to give you a variety. And all of Laura Kate Dale has written a few of the essays in here, and they're kind of interspersed along with everyone's. And there was one bit where I really enjoyed the placement, which I will talk about in a moment. What else did I want to say on this? So I've written notes so I can remember everything I wanted to say. Yeah, so it's full of completely different stories, different journeys, people at different stages, and different backgrounds, and all kind of like different walks of life. So it's a real mixture. And Laura Kate Dale does like speak in the introduction of this about how she explored a lot of different writings, and the ones that she chose were ones where she really felt they were really stories that she wanted to have in here, about like the joy that they accumulate. Doing a rubbish job of talking about this. Like, my brain is going faster than my mouth. Let's have some more tea. Okay. So ones where she really felt they added something different, and the particular joy they spoke about just gave a big variety of it. So I think a lot of thought has gone into like how it's all been put together. Equally, have a dip in and out. Why not? It's wonderful. And the tagline is it's stories of joy from trans, non-binary and intersex writers. And there's some really lovely quotes on here about you know, how different people have found it and like what they've said about it. And gender euphoria is a powerful feeling of happiness experienced as a result of moving away from one's birth-assigned gender. So, like I said, there's so many different stories in here, and I enjoyed all of them. It was brilliant to like read these range of stories, but having the focus on joy rather than sort of struggle and trauma, to kind of move away from that sort of narrative. And I really enjoyed that in the introduction, Laura Kate Dale pointed out that is an important narrative, definitely, but also we want to have joy. We want this to be a joyful experience, and like what people love about being trans, you know, it's not second best. Obviously, no one wants to go through the pain and the struggle and having to live in a society where people don't understand, and at worst give you outright hate. But at the same time, people in here love their transness and how they are, and how they being able to reflect their truth, and it comes in a variety of ways, and it was just brilliant to just read all about that and just read the joy. And I think obviously there's going to be some stories that speak to you as an individual person more than other ones. I've chosen a few to talk about that just kind of give a different reflection, that I just wanted to point out a few things that I thought were particularly powerful. But I think everyone will have their own enjoyment. So I would also say, if you're interested in reading this, please go and check out Kevvie's video from Say Kevvie, where she talks about this as well. And then you have a trans woman's perspective and her own experience kind of like reflecting in this. Because obviously I am a not obviously, you might not know, I'm a cis-het woman. So it's going to be a different experience for me reading it to someone who is trans reading it. So I'm now going to talk about a few different bits and pieces from here that I particularly loved. If you really want to read this, and if you are someone that wants to know nothing about books before you go into them, then I suggest you skip ahead to see what I'm going to be reading next, because I am going to be doing mild spoilers, and I think the best way to talk about this book is by reading some of the quotes from it, because I think their words are going to be so much more succinct and beautiful than mine will be. So please skip ahead if you do not want to hear any more about it, because you want your experience of it to be the first time you hear about it. Okay, let's go in. So let me find my first bit. So I went a little bit crazy, not crazy because I'm not a natural tabber, but I was tabbing in here. Okay, so the first one I want to talk about is called My Mister's Mister. ensuring I got a gender affirming wedding. And this is by Miles Nelson, who is an autistic author and trans man living in Durham in the UK, who came out at age 17. And this was a really lovely sort of like bits of their journey and sort of like some of the difficulties they thought along the way, but the focus is very much Miles's wedding to his husband Chris, and some of the concerns that they thought they were going to have sort of along the way, and how the wedding itself was just so joyful, so beautiful, and I did get tearful at many different points in this one, reading about how joyful it was, just how joyful, how much this was just a celebration of their love, and it was just really, really beautiful. Obviously they do have a struggle, and I thought it was a really kind of important story to explore, because again, everyone is at different stages within their journey in this book, and that did affect how things would look in the legal side of their being married, but it just, they were able to kind of work around it and work through it and still have the wedding of their dreams. And Miles was still able to be in the wedding, his husband's husband, and being his true self throughout, you know, one of the happiest days of their life. And it was just beautiful, just the way they described like how it was going to fit for them, like the way they spoke about their outfits, about like little details. They had like a minivan, was like how they drove there with rainbow flags, and they also had, and obviously being bookish, like most of us are on here, they had board books in there of Tango Makes Three for like some of the younger guests to read, and that is such a cute book that I really want to read. I've only kind of heard about the gist of it. It's on my list of picture books that I want to acquire, but it's about a real life story of two male penguins that adopt a penguin chick. So cute. So I love that they kind of like had that for the little ones in their wedding, and it just felt very like the story, that the celebration they wanted to have. So it's very beautiful. And one bit I want to read out is when they're talking about their wedding vows. Well, when Miles is talking about their wedding vows. Chris's vows told a story of learning what love truly is, how it transcends gender, transcends sexuality, and how love without limits is the truest love of all. Lovely. So yeah, I could have quoted so many things in there, but I felt like that was the one that really kind of like stood out to me. So that was one story. And another one, and this is where I'm going to talk about the placement. Sorry, Morty. So we had, Laura Kate Dale, who wrote this, one of her partners is one of the memoirs in here. So this is Jane. So Jane Erith Magnet. She wrote something called Escaping the Monochrome Closet at Pride. And it says she is 40, she's a trans woman, an online entertainer and writer. So, online entertainer, I'm going to try and see if I can find any of her stuff online. So she told her story of starting off with kind of like her anxieties around how she was perceived when she was out and about in society, and society is not necessarily or sometimes even remotely accepting of things that are different, things that they don't understand. So Jane very much was trying not to draw attention to herself and became quite anxious about her facial hair being seen, and she kind of had a very kind of like almost strict regime before she would leave the house, and it sounded quite crippling in a way. So hearing her story of how she kind of overcame that, and the joy she found at being at a Pride event where she realised no one cared. It didn't matter. She was accepted for her and who she was, surrounded by all these people. And then from there, she then had the confidence to start experimenting with her wardrobe and like finding joy in herself, and it was just really lovely. So I really enjoyed reading that story. And then to read the one that followed it is the second entry from Laura Kate Dale, where she speaks about her partner Jane, who wrote the story before, and it just really made my heart soar to hear that Jane, who had gone through a lot of anxiety and then found her own confidence, was living in a really supported, loving relationship where she encouraged her partner to have fun exploring her voice. So Laura Kate Dale kind of spoke about how she was able to kind of explore her masculine voice, having spent a long time trying to get rid of the masculine voice to kind of more reflect her true self. She then spoke about how she was able to kind of play around with it, because Jane really enjoys doing like silly voices and characters, and just hearing about like the fun they would have creating all these wonderful characters. Like, I really want to hear Drunk Sherry Lady. I really would love. I don't know if they have anything online now. I know that Jane has got a online presence. I'm definitely going to see. I really hope there's some of these crazy characters on there, because I'd love to hear like a podcast or something with them playing with all these characters, because it sounds hilarious. But to hear that Jane has got that joy, it just made me so happy. It just made me so happy. It was so lovely. Okay, was that everything I wanted to say about that one? Yes, that was wonderful. So the next story, essay, whatever you want to call it, was called The Gender of Language, Finding a Pronoun for My Identity. And this is by Teddy Sweet. Teddy is a 30 non-binary immigrant writer enjoying village life in the UK. So Teddy grew up in Hungary, and then their family immigrated to the UK. And Teddy kind of like talks about their exploration with gender, and how in Hungary they don't have gendered pronouns. So it was really interesting to hear that perspective, especially when their identity, it is kind of a big part of their identity pronouns when you are in a country where there are gendered pronouns. So there are a couple of things that I wanted to talk about from this one. So Teddy mentions that a friend requested like a change in pronouns. That's how they wanted to be referred. And this is kind of Teddy's experience of when they used the correct pronouns for their friend. The happiness and contentment that shone through him the first time he was referred by masculine pronouns was quite humbling. It's such a simple act to affirm someone's gender, but it brings so much positivity for all. I just thought, that's so important for everyone to hear. It's such a small thing to do. It costs you nothing. It does not matter to you just respecting someone's pronouns. But the effect on that person is monumental. And I loved hearing about that experience. And then at the end, so this was collated in 2019. I think Laura Kate Dale kind of did the forward and afterward in 2020, and it was published in 2020 or 2021. Published in 2021. So obviously we're a few years down the line. I'm not currently aware of everything that is going on in the UK at the moment. I don't always stay abreast of everything in the news or how everything's going, just for my own mental well-being. I take little bits and that's just enough. So I don't know if this is still the feeling of being trans in the UK at the moment, but in 2019, this is what Teddy had to say about things. It certainly feels like Hungary has a language that is ahead of its time, while the country is working its hardest to culturally regress on any advancements that have been made over the years. Meanwhile, the UK is slowly but surely trying to shed a completely binary speech pattern to allow language to catch up with current attitudes and hopefully will continue to move in the correct direction, bringing more people the affirmation and euphoria they deserve. So again, I kind of enjoyed that juxtaposition about how Teddy's experience of growing up and their first language being one where all things are, you know, gender neutral and things aren't gendered, and then having to come somewhere and learn gendered language, but then kind of the irony of how that feels great that Hungary have gender neutral pronouns, but unfortunately the as of 2019, the way the political landscape is in Hungary and kind of like the things that were changing, it's sort of was moving backwards in its trans positivity, whereas the UK was trying to move forward and trying to change their sort of gendered language. I don't know if that is still the case at the moment. It certainly feels like there is fighting going on to kind of maintain trans rights, and I think obviously it is worse in different countries, but it's I don't know kind of the situation at the moment. I would like to hope that the media attention is just on the people who are shouting the loudest and just not on what the actual laws are going to be turning in and reflecting. But I know that obviously there was a pushback of moving forward recently in different things, but hopefully we're moving away from that, but I don't know. But I just thought that was really interesting, and it's a different experience. So I wanted to share that one. Okay, moving on. So the next one is Fashion, Gender and Not Knowing Your Non-Binary in Nigeria. And this is by Olu Niri Awasusi. Again, apologies if I butcher names. And Olu is 28, software developer, writing, Philomath, Londoner. And so this spoke about Olu's journey, and just how one day when they dressed for a wedding, they suddenly had clothes had never been kind of like a big part of their life. They'd kind of been struggling, sort of looking at who they were and how that kind of reflected in themselves. And but this was like suddenly they kind of had that moment of euphoria, and I just found it really interesting to see how they spoke about how clothes suddenly turned on its head and became a huge part of their like gender affirmation. I'd liked individually in the past, sure, but this was the first time the whole of an outfit and the whole of myself felt cohesive. It made my reflection finally click with what I felt inside for the first time. I finally understood that clothing could make me feel better, more whole, more alive. The look was a lot butcher than what I would have guessed would have made me feel good about myself at the time. I thought I wanted to emulate the look of my stylish friends, to be the height of effortless European girlhood. What made me feel euphoria now, I guess, is the almost androgyny that I had for a while that day, what I've always been reaching for. It has proven elusive. It became more and more so as I got older and knew myself better. Hard femme, comfort femme and other association labels opened a world of glitter, fancy yet comfortable trainers, mesh and sequins. If I couldn't look how I dreamed of looking, I could weave a world where my body fitted my presentation and claw out a comfortable space for my whole self to fit. And then I want to read this kind of part at the end that kind of touches more on that. In that moment, I was exactly where and who I was supposed to be. I looked correct, felt correct, and for once in my life, I believed it was a feeling that was accessible to me. I just love that. I just love like that positivity and that joy and that euphoria. Who are you? Oh, I've already done you. There we go. And then the final one before I talk more about Laura Kate Dale is by Jaden Hamid, and it is one called, did I mention Olu's title? I don't know if I did, but I'm going to say it again just because I didn't, because I have no idea. So Olu's title of their essay was called Fashion, Gender and Not Knowing Your Non-Binary in Nigeria. So this is Jaden Hamid, who is a 24 disabled trans man living in Colombo, Sri Lanka. And this is called The Gates to Jannah. Again, sorry if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. Jannah, Balancing, Transitioning, and My Faith. So again, Janan kind of explains sort of like a succinct version of their journey with being trans, and how it didn't necessarily align with the Muslim faith that they'd been shown, well, that they'd been kind of grown up with, and then how they needed to kind of move out to live fully as themselves, and how they found sort of another family and a space that felt safe and a space that felt they could be accepted for who they are. Sorry, who he is. And one of the people that he found in his life was Amy or Amy, I'm not sure which one it is. Amy, being a queer Muslim herself, led by example. She prays, she recites, she fasts and carries out her Muslim duties, but she never feels the need to apologise for being who she is. She understands that a benevolent God would never shun her for this. And I think one of the important things, I think, of being someone of faith, to when you're always told that the societal expectations that you are cishet is how you should be, rather than your true identity and orientation, it's not a sin, and I can never see it as a sin. And I think many faiths are some faiths are already there, but I think many kind of faiths and branches of it are moving away to realize that this has been put in there by human expectation. Like, it's not a divine thing, it's the way humans have decided the world should be. And I always feel a joy when I see people still being able to hold on to their faith, still being able to practice their faith and know that they are loved by God and they are loved by their community, and who they are is not wrong. And I think that's so important and so valid, because I think it's so easy to kind of cut yourself up about things and believe other people are right, and believe like the kind of dogma that's spouted at you that's full of hatred, that is so anti what the religion is. So I always find this so joyful to kind of hear about like people's faith journeys. And I know some people turn away from faith, and that is completely fine, and that is what they need and how they make sense of the world, and it works for them, and that's brilliant. Whatever you need, whatever you think, you are allowed to, because that is up to you. But I feel when you are someone that your faith is still part of who you are, it's still part of what you believe, and it's kind of not aligning with other parts of your life. Like, this isn't a case of going, well, I'm going to choose this bit of my religion but not this bit. This is about kind of the spiritual core. This isn't about like rules and dictations. It is about like, what do you believe? What do you believe? And what do you believe is the most important thing? Like, what do you feel? So we're going off on a religion tangent now, people. What do you feel like God wants? Like, whatever your God is, like in terms of your faith, like, what do you feel is their message in this world? Like, why are we here? What are we supposed to be doing? And the answer in all faiths is love. And, you know, being kind to each other and supporting each other and being this community. And how can that be possible when you are hating people for just being who they are? So I find this really affirming. And I think it's so important that people hear. So to have a Muslim story in this book where they have this message, I just think is so important for people. And I'm going to say it again. She never feels the need to apologise for being who she is. She understands that a benevolent God would never shun her for this. And I think that really helped Jaden work out, you know, that he could still have his faith and like help himself come back to his faith. And I think that's something he's still working on and kind of aligning. And another kind of part that he goes on to say is, an unexpected positive that came with this new life I'd undertaken was also me learning not to be ashamed of my disability and to learn to work alongside it once again, thanks to the immense support I received from my friends. And I think that's also important as well. Like, people aren't just trans, like there's other kind of parts of them that kind of all come in, but it's also about just self-acceptance and self-love and self-worth. And I just think everyone needs that. Absolutely everyone needs that. Like, but particularly when you are living somewhere where you're constantly told that you are wrong just for being who you are. So like that one was particularly important for me to want to share. So going on to Laura Kate Dale. Now, Laura Kate Dale, pardon me, she has an autobiography that is on my list of books that I want to read, called Uncomfortable Labels, My Life as an Autistic Trans Woman. And I am now so hyped for that book because I have really loved what she's written in here, and such a wide variety of different things she's got in here. Like, she's joined a roller derby team. We hear all about her like inner geekiness and like how she's like done cosplay and gaming, and like how different parts kind of like helped her on her journey to fully like be her true self. And one of the things, so I'm mainly going to focus on another one because it was a really big thing that I liked in that particular one, but I'm just going to read a little bit from what she spoke about Warcraft. This is the longest segmented study because I've just got so much to say about this. I am glad I took a chance and played World of Warcraft as a female character. If I hadn't, I don't know if I ever would have known the simple joy of being gendered correctly and feeling it wash over me like a wave of calm relief. It's where I first found the feeling of being home. Just so beautifully put, just so beautifully told. And I love that image of the sea. I find the sea very calming. I love the sea. So I just thought that was beautifully done. And that whole kind of like little story where she talks about how gaming, where you can be like an online person, and no one in your real life knows who you are. No one needs to know you. You're just playing a game, and you can experiment with, does this feel right for me? And no one else needs to know about it. And I just thought that was a really important thing to kind of have in there, especially if you are someone who is questioning and unsure like how to go about anything next. So it sounds like online games, trying it out in kind of like a gaming universe, and then having the confidence to try it out in real life. I thought that was really a really lovely thing to have in here. And finally it's happening to me. I want to talk about Feeling Safe and Welcome and Seen by My Teen Idols by Laura Kate Dale. So in this one, she talks about My Chemical Romance. And I love the Black Parade album. I came across it in my last year of uni, and I'm not say strange with my music, but I'm not someone who's like into music. I'm very much someone who hears songs and goes, I like that. And then I don't necessarily kind of like then just really get into particular bands or like particular music genres. I just kind of will listen to that album incessantly and I'm like, this is what I need to hear all the time for like a good month. And I'll just listen to the same thing because I like to kind of like learn the words of the songs so I can sing them in my head more beautifully. So I loved the Black Parade song. It just really, wasn't so much the lyrics, it was very much just more how the music made me feel. And I felt like part of this, don't know what the word is, but you just kind of felt part of something as you were kind of hearing it. So I just loved the album. I found the sound really different. It might just be because I hadn't experienced a lot of that particular music genre, I don't know, but I just found the sound really, really different. And my friend knew I was obsessed with it. She enjoyed it, but she wasn't like listening to the album every time. She had a range. So my lovely friend, if you've been watching my channel, she's Sula. I refer to her as Sula the giraffe from when I did my Books on Tour video. And she said, oh, they are playing at Wembley, come and see them. And we got tickets, we went, it was incredible. Their My Chemical Romance's tour of when they just released their Black Parade album was amazing. Like the stage dedication, everything else, I just loved it. I had the best time. But hearing Laura Kate Dale talk about it is fantastic. So I'm just going to say a few things about the album just because that speaks to me. And I also think like mental health is something that I find very important. And I think I agree with Laura Kate Dale, and I really am pleased that she speaks about like their album was not about glorifying suicide, which is like what a few people felt it was. It was very much kind of the opposite, that it's okay to feel crappy, but like, you know, keep going, you know, find out about things. So I'm just going to read in her words now. Well, the album was a theatrical rock concept album that ultimately built up to a message of hope, with the final track of the album being an anti-suicide anthem about finding the will to stay alive no matter how alone you feel. It was an album that focused initially on feelings of loss, loneliness and isolation, but used those as a backdrop to build up a message of strength. You might feel lonely and sad, but it's okay. There is a whole army of people out there just like you, and together we'll keep living one day at a time. She then speaks about that, like she really like followed My Chemical Romance even like before they kind of like came big, and that at their concerts they always spoke about reminding people like to get help. You're not weak for accepting mental health support, and to make sure that you were accessing support, and the importance of that, which is such a great message. One of my strongest teenage memories of feeling respite from my depression was standing in the crowd at one of their shows, in a crowd of thousands, all belting out, "I'm not okay," at the top of our lungs, saying out loud that something was wrong and not pretending it wasn't the case. They were exactly the band I needed as a struggling teen. And then she goes on to talk about, you know, that they broke up, and that there were some solo acts, and their lead singer, Gerard Way, was doing a solo tour of his own music and a few dates in the UK. I'd enjoyed his debut album a lot, so I camped out overnight to get myself a nice spot front and centre at his first UK tour date. And then it goes on to talk about this. So she says, the show itself was amazing, but what I really remember from that night was a single moment between two songs. Way stopped singing and just took a moment to thank any trans people who had felt safe enough to come along to the show that night. I know there are people out there who can say it better than me, but if you're here tonight and you are transgender or you're non-binary, I have so much love for you. Thank you for being here and for being you. And if you're here and you're not trans or non-binary, but you have a friend who is and you're good to them, I love you for that. Words can't do justice to how magical that moment felt. Someone whose music had helped me through some of the toughest years of my life stood and made it clear that I and people like me were welcome at his shows. The crowd erupted in cheers of support, and I felt incredibly at home. So often, for a trans person, crowded events with lots of people can be daunting. There are concerns about personal safety to consider, and any crowd large enough will probably contain someone transphobic just by the law of large numbers. But to stand in a room of thousands and feel safe and wanted and accepted was an incredibly powerful feeling. It really meant a lot to me. And I just want to end on that, because I don't think there's anything more to say than that. Like, that concert and that feeling, that's how the world should be. And it isn't. I didn't know I was going to cry. There we go. And if that's how it's made me feel, the effect on someone reading that who is trans, who has a trans loved one, The book's so important. It's so important. Reading trans authors, having trans stories available for everyone is so important. And don't be disheartened by the media using it as a political puppet. Don't be disheartened by the laws. It's so easy for me to say, but the fact that we're getting books published like this, the fact that mainstream people are aware, the fact that there are people that are accepting it, we're getting there slowly, and it's not fast enough, but we'll get there. We have so much to do. We still have so much to do with all other marginalized things, but keep the faith. Keep sharing these books, keep sharing the joy and holding on to that, and keep supporting each other. And drink tea if you like tea. So I'm now going to talk about my other books with the segmented study. This is so much longer than I thought it was going to be.
My next class is Inscription, studying the glyph Flight, reading a book from your top highest shelf. The highest shelf I had to find my Inscription study was one of the top shelves that also housed my Hob books. So it worked quite perfectly that City of Dragons, the next Robin Hobb book I need to read, was on the top shelf. So this is the third book in the Rainwild Chronicles, which is the fourth book in Robin Hobb's adult fantasy realm of the Elderlings. So City of Dragons, I have started. I've read the first couple of chapters. So I'm not going to say too much about it because obviously it is the third book in a series. But to talk about it briefly without any spoilers of the other books, I really enjoyed the first two books that I consider one book because that's how Hobb intended it. Dragon Keeper and Dragon Haven. I loved the character arc that we got from them and the depth that we got from them. Some people found it too long, it didn't work for them, but I am a real big character reader, and I just think the way Hobb writes, you just immerse yourself in this world, and you were kind of living and breathing like their journey and their kind of quest, and I loved it. So I really enjoyed that. So we really pick up instantly kind of where we sort of left off, but we get different things in here. Okay, there's going to be mild spoilers, like it's not going to ruin anything. For other bits, I'm just going to lightly touch on things, but obviously if you are reading the Realm of the Elderlings and you don't want to know, then go to a different video. So we start off with kind of like the prologue. We are like live ships where we got to see serpents, we get to see another character. So you are still following like another creature and sort of the journey, because we've not really heard a lot from them. So you get to see them. We get like action and suspense right from the beginning that I really was not expecting. Like the first book that I really enjoyed, it was very much a kind of like settling to the story. There was a lot of setup. This one is like bang in with the action straight away. We also finally get to hear about I never know if I'm pronouncing it correctly in my head, so I'm just gonna make a really good go if I can even manage to do that. Chalced is how I'm saying it. So you get to see the country of Chalced from like the rulers. So that's setting up kind of like the danger for the characters we've previously worked on and established in here. And then we again get who I like to refer to as the pigeon people. We get their letters at the beginning of the next one, so we get sort of like the news from surrounding things going on. And again, there's kind of more drama with them than there was at the beginning. It was a lot more kind of like gently paced. And I just think it's amazing how within this
series, this kind of chronicle, as well as following the main story of the characters, we've also got this kind of like epistle story of that is just done through letters, through the pigeon people passing letters on. I think they're called the bird keepers. That's their official title, but I just ended up calling them the pigeon people because it makes me laugh. And so you're getting more kind of drama from them as well, and it's kind of setting up. I feel like there's going to be a lot more kind of I feel like the politics are going to sort of like start playing heavily into this one. Like I said, the first one was very much more on the journey of the characters and kind of their growth and like the heart of the story. But I think we're now going to see how what's happened to them and the fates of them kind of look in the bigger context of the world, and how the different like political infractions are going to all come into play. So that is really exciting. However, the thing that makes me feel slightly daunted is the fact that this is only, it's not even 500 pages, this is 425. A Hob book, I would say, probably averages 700. So I don't know how it's all going to go, because usually like you get 700 from Hob. So I don't know why it makes me feel a little bit nervous. Like I just feel there's so much coming in here. I'm not sure if we're going to have enough pages for it all to like happen as thoroughly as I would like it to. I think other people might see this as a blessing and be really excited. It's only 420 something pages, but this is my favorite. This is my favorites. So I want as much time in here as possible. And we also get to meet up with the characters, the dragons and keepers that we previously met, and kind of see how they are now and what's going on in their lives. And I really enjoyed all of that. One of my favourite relationships is that they're continuing, and just how they have come on and how their character arcs have grown. We get to kind of like see more of that and kind of see everything is. So we get like a really nice kind of like settling in chapter 2. So yeah, I'm really excited to like see where the rest of the story goes, and you'll be getting my full thoughts on this one in the next and the final segmented study. Along with, in my part 2, I spoke about starting Spice Road. I nearly finished that one, and so you will hear my thoughts on that one as well. Thank you so much for watching. This is so much longer than I expected it to be, but I had so much to say on Gender Euphoria. I hope you are all having a happy reading month and enjoying everything you're reading in April. Happy reading, everyone.